Hi everyone, and welcome to our CSCDH compost service training. As a result of this training, hopefully you'll learn a little bit more about our compost services here on campus, as well as how to service them. So if you look around the campus, you should be seeing bins more frequently that contain three different receptacles. So this is our three waste stream system for the campus, which will become campus standard. So hopefully we can provide some background into where the items that are placed in these bins go, which will hopefully direct your efforts when it comes to servicing them. So when you go to a waste receptacle on campus, there should be three streams or three openings on that bin that will go to different places. So the first stream is landfill, aka trash. So this is the service you're probably most familiar with. When people throw things away, generally it ends up in the landfill. So this is designated by the black receptacle. It has some guidance on what's considered landfill or trash, usually chip bags, straws, styrofoam, things that basically can't be processed to be reused into anything else. So that's your trash service. Also, you'll usually find a blue mixed recycling receptacle right next to it. And recycling is different than trash in that even though you put it into a bin, all the materials that you put into that bin is basically collected and hauled to a different facility where they can take those materials and actually recycle them or repurpose them into something else. So it actually gives those items a second life instead of them just ending up in landfill where they don't go anywhere. So this is usually high-grade items like hard plastics, aluminum, metal, paper, cardboard, things like that. Now, however, a stream that you might not be as familiar with is the compost stream. So this is fairly new to our campus, but it is going to become more prevalent over time. And that's the green compost receptacle that's also going to be located as part of this bin. Now, the items that go into here are really supposed to be food waste items, which when they're collected and taken to the facility will be turned into high-grade compost as well as biogas, which will basically serve as renewable energy at that commercial facility. So even though you have an item in your hands, depending on which receptacle you actually put them in, they're going to end up in very different places. So in terms of why care about compost, why add a third stream to our, existing trash and recycling system, compost is interesting because organic material like food waste is one of the worst contributors to climate change. So when you throw food away and it ends up in the landfill, it's actually worse than other landfill materials because it produces a lot of methane, which is actually 23 to 30 times more potent than CO2, which we're familiar with. So in terms of materials you want to definitely keep out of the landfill if at all possible, food waste and compost is one of them. Another good point too is that food waste, if it enters the landfill, it doesn't really do anything except contribute to global warming, but it can be turned into a very useful product, which is compost. So obviously you want to salvage that material and actually do something useful with it. On top of that, as a campus, we care because we're attempting to go zero waste, which means that we're trying to maximize our diversion away from landfills, which have a negative impact on our communities, and really try to divert them to more useful streams. On top of that, composting is now legally required by the state of California. For example, AB 1826 actually makes commercial organics recycling mandatory for facilities like ours. And AB 827 now makes it mandatory to actually have a compost or organics receptacle right next to every single trash can you have out, obviously with the exception of bathrooms. So regardless of how we feel about it, composting is going to become more mainstream. So obviously we need to be prepared as a campus to service our users in that regard. Now, in terms of what can actually go into the quote-unquote compost bin, because we have our hauling contract with Republic Services, there's limits to what they can take when it comes to compost. So in this case, for our campus, everything is restricted to food waste only. And when we say food waste, it's really anything that was food at one point. So that can include cooked food, uncooked food, scraps, meat and bones, shells, peels, old food, new food, whatever you want, as long as it was food at one point, it can go into that bin. But it only can take food waste. So they can't accept packaging, even things that say they're compostable. So, that potato fork or that compostable clamshell, they can't take that. It has to be actual food. In terms of the only exception to that is that if users have a lot of food scraps, they can put it into a clear plastic bag. in order to collect the scraps and throw it away. And I'll get into why it's important that the plastic bag is clear, both for the user and for people servicing the bin when for collection. So the most important thing to know about our compost stream is that we have to use a clear liner per Republic Services requirements. So the reason why they demand a clear bag liner is that they want to be able to see what the contents are in that bag. If they receive a black or non-see-through bag, you know, in their dumpster, basically they'll treat it like trash. They'll assume that it's contaminated, it's not meant to be there, and they'll just send it right to the landfill anyway, which kind of defeats the purpose. So whenever you're replacing a liner, make sure you're using a clear see-through one. And eventually that bag, when it's received at the facility, will be popped and disposed of separately, and they'll just take the food scraps that are inside. But again, we need to use clear liners to make sure the facility can handle it. And once you're done collecting the compost from that receptacle in that hopefully clear bag, you can then take the contents to the specific green waste food dumpster that we have that we share with the LSU. That's located at the LSU SBS loading dock. So in order for it to actually reach the facility, we have to get it to that one dumpster because that's the only dumpster we have that's enabled to take, that will collect the food waste, and Republic Services will haul it away from there. And if you need a visual of what it looks like, this green bin dumpster, it says food waste on it. It's in line with the rest of the dumpsters that the LSU has on their side. But again, if you have that clear bag of organics or compost, just make sure it ends up in this green dumpster and none of the others. And we'll be able to contribute to keeping that stuff out of the landfill. So hopefully that made sense. If you have any questions, feel free to contact the Office of Sustainability. And thank you for contributing to our zero waste efforts.